my brain goes to movies like Gladiator.
Right. I was thinking the same
And
thing.
you see, all right, this is how you fight. They're teaching the new servants or slaves or whatever. All right.
Daily sparring with each other. Yeah.
The daily sparring and just training. And I'm thinking, okay, that's pretty interesting to me. And welcome to another episode of Real Dad's Lead. I'm your host, Dwayne Smith, and as always, my sidekick over here, Mr. Matt Hamilton. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Did you have a good week?
Yeah, it was a
Overall?
good week. Pretty productive.
Pretty productive. Well, that's good. We had a fairly good week. Kind of went out and saw a movie. Am I Racist? Did you see that?
I did.
We won't talk about that on the air, but are you racist?
I was just going to ask you, what do you decide? Depends on who you talk to. According to Matt Walsh, no.
Yeah. It's
But
very
according to all the people he
interesting.
interviewed.
Yeah, a lot of very interesting. I mean, it's getting good reviews, and but at first there was no one reviewing it. Only audience.
Mm.
Like on Rotten Tomatoes, it was like, I don't know, 90-some%
I
Rotten
think it was-
Tomatoes, and then like from the critics, like 0.
Yeah.
Like no one even would even look at it.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting to me.
Yeah, I think the public was like 97.
97%.
It's crazy high.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know. It was interesting. I told my son before we went, I was like, I just want to see if there's anybody picketing or anything.
Yeah.
There was nothing.
Yeah, no, there wasn't.
Yeah.
But it was the fullest I've seen
A
a
theater.
theater in a while.
Yeah, we had we didn't have a packed one, but when I was looking at different theaters, one of them was packed. Like we couldn't get into that one, so we had to go to another one. So yeah, I guess it's been fairly well received.
Yeah.
Well received. It's interesting though, because I don't know if I told you, but Kyle's in a class that has people with those kinds of thoughts, that kind of belief system, where no matter what, if you are if you're Caucasian, if you're a white American, basically,
Especially male. Yeah.
especially male, but you're automatically racist. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's just inherent in you because of that. And so he's trying to, he doesn't believe that necessarily at all. He doesn't believe it at all, but he's trying to do his best to,
Help
build
him see.
relationships and things like that. And he thought that after he left the movie, he was like, this is not the kind of movie that is unifying to him. It was not unifying. And so I was like, yeah, you're probably right about that if someone's going into it, blind. But if you are not, I don't think that was the purpose of it. It was pretty much to expose some of the thinking that is prevalent in some of these institutions that are just out of whack, and how people are taking advantage of that and making a lot of money by just promoting
Yeah.
things that are just crazy.
Yeah. I think so. Corbin, my son, had said, one of my sons, both of them went and saw it. He had made the comment that, it's probably more made for people that are already in agreement, but also for people who are on the fence, who don't, they're not fully aware, what's going on. So it's like, let's tip the scales here and help you see what's really happening, and so you can make a once and for all decision, as to what side of the fence you want to be on. But I do think that if somebody went in with a fairly open mind and they saw how those holding that position were manipulating the system, taking advantage of this, the way the culture is leaning right now, they might walk away. Maybe they'd get back on the fence at the very least, you know what I'm saying? Because to see, like you were mentioning, to see people charging him, for example, at one point $50,000 just for a very short interview,
right,
you know,
right.
That's like, I mean, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And then to find that she has no evidence actually that her claims were legit is even more nauseating,
right,
you know.
Right.
I think the movie's, I think it should be seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
It is, as I said off air, 2 hours of pure awkwardness. I mean, like it is. I told you my buddy who was like slumping down in his chair, you know, further and further during the movie, and my other son was like had his shirt up over his microphone just because it was so painful to watch at times how awkward it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I enjoyed it myself, and we went with another friend, and we were laughing and laughing. Kyle laughed every once in a while, but he just has a heart for other people. So, I mean, I totally understand his dilemma there. I don't even know if it's a dilemma, but his hesitance to, you know, fully embrace something like that when he's trying to reach people.
Do you think that you can have both, though?
I think, like you said, if you're on the fence, if you are...
No, I mean, you as an individual, can you, personally, you're not on the fence, can you have a heart for those people while simultaneously watching this movie and laughing as much as you did?
I think I would have to work on that. I'm not sure, I mean, how God is working in my heart for people that I think are just crazy. And sometimes he has to remind me that they are his creation as well, and he loves them just as much as he loves me, and he has a heart for them to know him. But I think sometimes, I don't know, it's a hard bridge to travel sometimes, a hard fence to navigate.
So you're not there right now?
I think I'm there in some instances. I'm not in Kyle's realm. So like all of my circle of influence right now is very like-minded, and the people that I meet that are not like-minded from work and everything, there's just very few that are crazy to me. I mean, there's a few, but very few. And it's more or less, you know, it's just in and out. It's not like try and build a relationship and convince them or share with them. Yeah. You know. So.
I think it depends in part on personality. I think that you can think that something is totally crazy and even laughable, you know, and be able to laugh at jokes about it while simultaneously having a heart for those people, so that when you enter into conversation with them, you're not going to be laughing in their face. You know, this is now the moment for me to be serious and compassionate towards you and understand that you've been duped.
Right,
you know?
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. So we've been going through fathers of the Bible, and we're still on Abraham. I think we'll be on Abraham for a little while.
Yeah,
seems like. But we did chapter 12, chapter 13. This is chapter 14. Is that 14? Yeah, 14. The beginning of that chapter seemed to me is mostly talking a little bit about the setting of what we're getting ready to talk about and what is happening in the life of people in that region, Sodom and Gomorrah and some of the other areas around there, and some kings getting together to fight against other kings, and in the midst of that, Lot gets taken. So why don't you just read, starting in verse 14, Genesis 14:14, and I don't know, whenever you feel like it's a good place to stop, go ahead and stop.
All right, so when Abram heard that his relative had been taken prisoner, he assembled his 318 trained men born in his household, and they went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he and his servants, deployed against them by night, defeated them, and pursued them as far as Hobah, to the north of Damascus. He brought back all the goods, and also his relative Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the other people.
All right. So to me, there's a lot packed in there.
Okay.
Number one thing that jumped out to me is that, because we had talked about last week that when you're a father, you're not just a father to natural born kids, your biological kids. You don't have to just be a father to them, because Abraham, at that point, Abram had no natural born kids. But we discussed he was taking care of Lot, and this makes you think, oh, he had 360 men in his
318
men
Trained
that he was
men.
training. Trained men. I mean, he's the one training them, he's got to get them trained.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, well, now he's not just, he's an authority. That fascinated me when I just read that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
318 trained men. He's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we fight. I don't know. The brain in my brain goes to movies like Gladiator.
Right. I was thinking the same
And
thing.
you see, all right, this is how you fight. They're teaching the new servants or slaves or whatever.
And daily sparring with each other. Yeah.
The daily sparring and just training. And I'm thinking, okay, that's pretty interesting to me, that he was not just, training or fathering Lot, but also these other men in his caravan with him. And I was thinking too that,
And they were all born in his household, it says.
born in his household, yeah, which means
They didn't get the training from someplace else.
right. Exactly.
He may have contracted it out somehow.
Yeah.
They may have gone to jiu-jitsu class down the road or something.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But they did. They were born there. They had always been with him, and he made sure that they were trained.
Yeah.
Whatever that looked like.
And what do you think, like for men today,
Yeah.
fathers today, as far as the defending type of skills? I really never trained my boys. I personally never did train my boys in fighting skills. I told them if I was ever in a fight, this is how I would do it. And they laughed at me because I'm just a wild man. And said, it works. See, come after me. And I just started wailing.
Like
Just
a
like
gorilla,
a
man.
big gorilla man. And then they're like, oh, get away from me type thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. You've got size,
Yeah,
that can intimidate.
right. But I do think it is important to, give them some kind of training for
Yeah.
that.
I've struggled with this a little bit. I've gone back and forth. Like, I really want to do it. Let me rephrase that. I have wanted to do it. I've kind of been off and on about it. But one, it's not something I can do. I'm not equipped to teach them because I never was taught. Two, we don't really have a budget for sending them, to go get this training someplace. So those are two big obstacles, I think, for many men today. So then what's the solution there? But then the next question, more foundational, is like, how necessary is it today? Given the little time that we do have with our kids, and that's going to be more true, I think, for other dads whose kids are in public school, mine are homeschooled, who have all these extracurriculars, like you don't really see your kids a ton. And so when you do see them, you're thinking my number one is to build character, into them, to teach them scripture, and to be men of God. So where does something like that come in? On the other hand, I feel like there's something fulfilling about it, as a man. But is that because we're meant to be that way, or is it vanity? Is it appealing to pride? It could be both to a degree. I don't really know. I've really struggled how to prioritize this and whether or not to.
Yeah, there are a lot of, you look at some of the men on the internet, especially social media, whatever, that talk in our sphere. And I think it's very important to teach a man how to fight and a woman how to defend herself if something happens.
That part makes more sense to me. I don't have any hesitation there.
Which one?
Teaching a woman how to defend herself.
Okay.
I mean, most of the time that a woman is attacked, there's no other men around.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like you could respond with, well, the men need to know how to get this guy off of her. Chances are he's not doing it around other men. I mean, he's a coward. You know, like he's going to attack her when he thinks that she's weakest and nobody's going to help. So she needs to know how to get away from him. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you're going to need to defend yourself, it seems to me that you like think about the guy. You remember the guy that raped the woman on the train a few years ago?
Right. And everyone's just kind of standing, taking pictures.
Yeah. Like what the world? I mean, all that's really needed there is for just two men, even to grab that guy and get him off and to keep him away.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know how much fighting technique is really necessary, but who knows? Maybe, I mean, somebody who's obviously more in the know with that stuff would say differently, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like where there's two or three guys, you can pretty much take care of any offender.
Yeah. That's true. So do you have the same, because you were saying that some of the hindrances from with the boys was, you know, your own personal skills in teaching it and financing. And do you think it's easier to teach a woman to defend herself that way, or?
I don't think it takes, from what I've seen just by scavenging, you know, like on the internet and looking what's involved in those classes, I don't think there's a ton of moves, you know, to be learned. I think that there's a set of basic moves that would suffice in most situations. So
you have daughters. Do you like?
We've done some of this stuff, yeah. Like just and there's good training. Like you can do that online, and even for your boys, like we've just not done it. There are videos that jiu-jitsu guys will put out there, or Krav Maga guys will put out there that you can practice every day. How quality is that going to be? You know, without the resistance that you would receive in the classroom, I don't know. I mean, it's better than nothing.
Right.
But I mean, it's expensive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're talking per kid $100+ a month. If you've got two kids, it's $200 more a month, and for a lot of people, that's just not doable.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a ripoff. I mean, they got to make money too.
Yeah.
But
so it might be cheaper to learn yourself and then teach yourself.
That's true. But then it's also the question of how many dads have the time.
Yeah. So I would, like, if you are then talking to dads out there, would you recommend, like, at a young age, you know, getting your kids involved in, you know, some kind of combat sport, possibly like wrestling, or like, I know your kids are homeschooled, but my kids were in a private school, but there are some also in public school that, you know, they have wrestling, or they have different things that you can learn some of those skills, and that's free.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've heard great things just about wrestling. You know, I think that might be a great option if your kids go to public school.
Or private school.
Yeah.
That might be something to pursue, of somebody who is a wrestling coach or some kind of a you know, maybe a boxing or whatever, to offer that to homeschool kids as a.
Hey, you know what? Yeah, that's a good idea, because so we we did use some scholarship money to go to Ronin, which there's only 11 Ronin complexes in the world, and one of them's here in Columbus. The guy who heads that up, he is the 5-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. Dude's beast. He's Brazilian. But you have monthly memberships, but then every Saturday they have a free class to the community.
Okay.
So it would be pretty cool if someone in the Christian community, for example, wanted to provide something like that. You know, every Saturday morning for 2 hours, you know, we have this free community judo class or jiu-jitsu class. That could be great. Or just a self-defense class. Like, let's teach you the top 23 moves, because this is exactly how, like, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu people will advertise. They'll say there's 23 jujitsu moves that will get you out of basically any street fight. Like, make sure that you win it.
Yeah.
The only people that are going to beat you, that is how they advertise, will be the people who know jujitsu better than you do. Like,
right.
So something like that would be fantastic. It'd be an excellent way to serve.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a pay as you can kind of a thing. Whatever you can
or
give,
donate.
that's fine. Donate. Yeah.
And it'd be advertising for that person. All right, we're going to pursue that.
That's a really good idea.
This is a patent pending. But back to Abraham, I'm guessing that he was. I never really thought of him as a fighter, but when you read in that scripture, not only was there training of those people in his household, but when they went out, it said he in those people.
Went out. He didn't send them out. He led them out.
He led them out.
So Abraham was the man.
Yeah.
Abram. Sorry. Yeah. So apparently he could fight as well.
At 75 or 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like took it on himself.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty.
It's a really interesting topic. It probably deserves its own episode.
Yeah.
And some more research. I think I have a hard time reconciling that whole movement of, to be a man, you need to know how to shoot and to fight and, protect and all this other kind of, there's just a lot of emphasis, like you said, in that whole realm on social media. That's one of the big pushes, because I think they know, not that it's not truly their own conviction, but they know that it really appeals to a lot of men.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time reconciling that with Christ, who is so peaceable, and not just Christ, but looking through church history, you've got these saints throughout church history who are also so peaceable and loving. I don't know. I think at the very least you got to make sure that second category takes priority over physical training, or defense fighting skills, things like that.
Yeah. I don't know. So people like Jordan Peterson or some others, they will talk a little bit about
the most dangerous man.
Yeah. It's you need to be able to, be a dangerous person, but have that meekness to
be fair,
control it.
And I think though he says that doesn't necessarily mean physically the most dangerous man. Like, you can be the most dangerous man in tongue and in pen, or maybe that was just my application. I don't know. So there's a guy named John Lovell. He writes the book, The Warrior Poet Way. My boys are reading it right now. He's a former Ranger, talks about this. He's definitely on that side of you got to know how to fight and, shoot and all that kind of stuff. He talks about being the gray man, which is the most dangerous man in the room, but nobody knows it. Kind of a thing. And you don't want them to know it. So it's not that I don't see any value in it. I have to imagine that most men out there are thinking, I've never been threatened in my life. I don't live in a society where I ever see the need to defend someone or myself. And I've been alive for 40, 50 years.
Right.
What are the chances of me seeing it again? And it's a hard sell for someone to say, well, it might happen one of these days. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it might happen, but the chances are extremely low. So then it's hard to, like I said, sell it to them that they need to give a significant portion of their time and money to accomplish this.
Yeah. It probably depends also on your location. There's places in even
so that
Columbus
might be part of the conversation
that are much more dangerous than where we live, type thing. And but it could happen to anyone. It could, just like a car accident, which we might get into here in a second. You don't think you need it until you need it.
Yeah.
So a lot of my clients, they say that. Never even heard of a mailbox doctor. Never even thought about it until I needed it. So, and then it's like, oh man, I should have taken the opportunity to do certain things.
I do think that in general, staying physically healthy is something that should be a priority.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the benefits is that if you ever do find yourself in a scuffle or trying to having to pull somebody off of somebody else, you're more likely to be able to do it. You know, that's just a side effect. That's not good enough reason to spend time constantly, you know, exercising and watching what you're eating. There's other benefits that collectively make it worthwhile, you know. And I think number one is God's given you this body. He's entrusted you with it, you know, and we should strive to keep it healthy as good stewards so that we can be here for as long as he wants us to, and to be able to operate optimally as husbands, as fathers, as friends, in the workplace, as ministers of the gospel, whatever, you know. But again, like what Paul says is bodily exercise profits a little, but godliness profits both for this life and the life to come. So it needs to take priority.
Yeah. That's good. Well, when you talk about Jesus' peacefulness, I'm thinking about the scene in this next Chosen, because I know that they're doing the clearing of the temple, and they had a little it's just like a picture of Jesus getting ready to go into the temple. It looked like, and he had a whip in his hand,
like seething. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, he might have been peaceable, but there are times when it was needed to not be so peaceable.
Yeah, I mean like physically not attacking other people.
Not attacking other people.
That's what I mean.
I mean, I don't know who
or
he was
even
whipping
defending
with that
himself,
whip.
or even defending himself, you know. But then the pushback in my own mind is there is a distinction. I mean, like if I, let's say I was trained, let's say I knew how to do all this stuff, you know, I knew how to shoot well, I was excellent at it, I knew how to fight multiple, you know, disciplines I was a pro at. If somebody is attacking my wife or is attacking me for something unrelated to my faith, then I'm going to respond, right? Mm-hmm. However, if somebody's attacking me for my faith, as in they're persecuting me, and this is the situation Christ found himself in, and the disciples found themselves in, and disciples throughout the last 2,000 years have found themselves in, then we're not to resist.
Yeah, I see the difference there.
Yeah. So that might be the response I'm saying. I'm in my own mind too. Well, Jesus was peaceable physically, and he wasn't attacking people even when they attacked him. Yeah, but that's different because this is for his faith, right? And it's the same with us. If we're to be martyred, you don't attack back. You know, you take the position of Christ.
Yeah.
But it's different if somebody's breaking into your home. It has nothing to do with your faith. They're just there to hurt your wife or your kids or you. Mm-hmm. Then, okay, now it's time to scuffle, you know, and try to stop this.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm also thinking of the time that, you know, in the Garden of Gethsemane, where, you know, Peter cuts off Malchus's ear, and that
which means he was pretty good with that knife.
He was good with the knife, and they had weapons. I mean, they weren't. Yeah. I mean, they were armed. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like, you know, just whatever happens. They were, I don't know.
My understanding is that knife was primarily an eating utensil. It was for constantly cutting up food and things like that. Like there's men carried those things around with them all the time. However, a secondary purpose would be if I need to use this in a fight, I'm going to use it. But the point, it wasn't like you're packing a gun kind of a thing.
Yeah. Right.
But clearly he wasn't afraid to use it.
Right. And could.
Yeah. But Jesus then corrected him, you know. So Peter has the opportunity there to at least try. He's not going to overcome this group of soldiers, but to at least try to defend or protect Jesus. Mm-hmm. But Jesus is they're here for, you know, to prevent me. I'm sorry, they're here to kill me because of things that I've been saying, and he wants to say, no, Peter, let them do it.
Yeah, but yeah, and in this case, Jesus knows why, and he knows what he has to do. So I mean, this is his Father's will, so he's going through with that. So I don't know. It's like you said, it's a good topic, and maybe we can cover it more. But let me know if you guys have any comments on that defense and defending oneself, and where that balance between harmony and peace and being able to defend yourself or in this case go and defend others. Let us know what you think. That would be great. Enter in that discussion with us. So I did think, though, because we said that, part of our 5 P's of what a father should be was protection. And in this case, that's why Abraham went to protect his nephew Lot, so he was providing that protection.
Right.
So anything else you found interesting in that?
Well, what most people probably don't know about this chapter is that this is known as Abram's war with the giants.
Oh.
So you've got, it talks specifically about where is it? Verse 5, it talks about the Rephaim, the Zuzim, and the Emim, and the Horites even. These are giant clans or clans that have giants in them.
Okay.
And there's textual evidence of that all over the Torah, the first 5 books of the New Testament or Old Testament. So Abram is actually scuffling here with giants.
Wow.
And so it's really an epic scene.
That needs to be a movie.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure people have it in the mix because the talk of Nephilim and all that has really skyrocketed over the last couple of years. And so these would be descendants of the Nephilim, who, for the people that are not aware of it in the audience, the Nephilim first come up in Genesis 6, so 8 chapters before this, where it says that the sons of God, who according to this supernatural, the giant view here, is that they were some kind of angelic being, look upon the daughters of men, come into them, bear children to them, and those children are the Nephilim. And these are giants of varying stature. Arguably, they were larger before the flood than they were after, but they're still giants, which, like the case of Goliath, for example.
Right.
But Goliath was not the tallest by any means.
Right.
Moses goes later and he takes out King Og of Bashan, who has a bed that is arguably about 15 feet long, which means he's up to 13 feet or so. So he's massive. So these giants fall somewhere, in that realm.
Yeah.
And Abram and his 318 men are defeating them at night, partially by sneak attack, partially by skill.
Yeah. Even
more so by the blessing of God.
Right.
And they're delivering Lot and the people from them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's I'm sure there's a lesson in there too somewhere about dads fighting giants, the giants that threaten to harm their children, metaphorically speaking.
Right. Yeah, it was a movie made out Facing the Giants.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I like that too. So what's the next portion?
All right, so the next portion, we're introduced to Melchizedek.
Okay.
You want to read this section?
Yeah.
After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the Shava Valley, that is the King's Valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest to God Most High. He blessed him and said, Abram is blessed by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has handed over your enemies to you. And Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. Then the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people, but take the possessions for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand in an oath to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread or sandal strap or anything that belongs to you. So you can never say, I made Abram rich. I will take nothing except what the servants have eaten. But as for the share of the men who came with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, they can take their share. Well, that's interesting, those last 3 men. So maybe it wasn't just the 318 men from his household, but these other men, because Mamre is an area that already exists, because he camps at the Oak of Mamre earlier on. So Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, they also maybe are allies here with their men.
Right.
But either way.
Interesting. So it's one of those things where Abraham, is able to go in and help these kings. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing? Like they were fighting
the king of Sodom,
and Melchizedek was a king of.
It doesn't say king of Salem, but it doesn't say that he was taken or his people were taken.
No, but they were in the same battle. Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't see Melchizedek being part of the battle. He kind of comes out of nowhere.
Well, he's used later in the Bible. I know that.
Yeah. Well, he's mysterious.
Yeah.
Because he's a type of Christ,
right?
As the great high priest, and Christ is a priest after the order of Melchizedek.
Mm-hmm.
And Melchizedek means two things. It means king of righteousness and king of peace.
Mm-hmm.
If you break his name down, so Christ is the king of righteousness and the king of peace.
Is that the first mention of a high priest?
I think so.
In the scripture, because when you think about high priest, I always think Moses, the Levitical priest with Moses' brother, or the Levites or whatever, and then the establishment of that kind of order.
This doesn't say he's a high priest. I'm saying Christ is the high priest, but he's a priest after the order of Melchizedek. It just calls him the priest of God Most High.
Oh, priest of God Most High.
It says a priest of God Most High.
Yeah, okay.
Which is interesting also because revelation of who God really is, at least more specifically, comes through Abram's line. Melchizedek is not from Abram.
Right.
So the knowledge that he has, and it's clear he's serving the true God here, the God Most High, must come from maybe Shem. I know I've heard that argued. Some people actually have argued that Melchizedek is Shem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's interesting. But he's received this knowledge passed down from Noah ultimately. And then he recognizes Abram as God's man and blesses him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that Abram shows some humility and shows some, like, even if he didn't feel like, I deserve this. I don't want to take your riches. This is from not Melchizedek, but from the king of Sodom. I don't want the spoils from this, or I just want you to get back everything that you had. I'm going to give you back all of your people. I'm going to give you back all of their possessions. And the king of Sodom's like, no, you keep the possession. We'll take the people, but you keep your possessions for doing this for us. We really appreciate it. He's like, no, I'm not taking this. Lo and behold, somebody will say, well, the king of Sodom made me rich, that was an interesting term as well.
God wants and Abraham wants all the glory to go to God alone.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so that when people look back on the foundations of Israel, they know that it's divine rather than the reason that they got such a good start as a nation. It's not because of God.
Right.
It's because they helped out the king of Sodom and they took all their spoils.
Right.
So he's removing that possibility.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it took a lot of trust. It took fighting off any temptation for greed, on Abram's part. Like this reveals a lot about his character.
Yeah. And he could even have made an excuse like, I will accept it, but I'm not going to take it. But all of my, my 318 fighting men and their families, and I'm just going to do it for them. And I mean, people do that all the time. Like I'm taking this, but it's for the good of all people type idea. When in reality, he understood that we can take care of ourselves.
Right.
So, but yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I know it was a short part of this chapter, but I thought it revealed a lot about Abram's character, and I thought there was a lot that we could glean from that as fathers in this modern world, where taking action when something's going on with your family. Like if you hear of something that's going on, all right, well, what can I do to help? We need to take care of this. It's very easy, even with family members sometimes, it's like, okay, we'll let them take care of it themselves. And if they need something, like he didn't wait for Lot to call out and say, hey, Abraham, hey, uncle, come get me. He heard the message. He's like, hey, this is what we're doing. Let's go. You've been training for this. Let's go get my nephew back.
So if your children are, if they have been captured by something, not physically necessarily, but captured in an unhealthy way, maybe it's pornography, maybe it's bad company and friendships, whatever it might be, these giants, because the giants do represent evil in Scripture, have kind of taken them captive. It's your job as a protector to step in and to rescue them, to fight for them, and to do it depending on the Lord and His grace and His strength to accomplish it.
Yeah. I was reading a article. It was a dad who, I think from Seattle, but his daughter was going to school somewhere in California, or the opposite. They were from California going to school in Seattle, one of the two. But she was assaulted by someone on the street, and she was just distraught, talking to him about it, and he said, "I'll be right there." And it was like a 1,000-mile trip or whatever, but he got his tickets, got there, went down, found the guy.
Wow.
And cornered him, called the police to get him.
Wow. Self-control right there.
Self-control. And they did. They got him, and I guess he had been also, assaulting other people. Wow. So she wasn't the only one. Yeah. So that idea of what Abram did for Lot is, can still happen today. If something's happening, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to take care of this. If no one else is taking care of it, this guy's not caught. He didn't really take matters he took matters in his own hand, but he didn't take it to the limit with his own hand. He, was able to call the police and have them. He let them know, though, this is what I'm doing. So I thought it was an interesting article. I'll send it to you. I'll show it to you if I can find it again. So anything else in this chapter you want to highlight about Abram and his character?
No, I mean, I would say just one more thing about the finances. Not only did he reject this opportunity for an exponential gain in his own life, but he actually lost money because he gives 10%
to Melchizedek.
Yeah. He gave, well, that's interesting. It says Abram gave him a tenth of everything. So I wonder what that means. All the spoils. Did he give him a tenth of all the spoils, or was it a tenth of something from his own possessions, or what? I'm not sure. Yeah. But either way, again, it further supports this idea that he was not greedy for gain. He wasn't going to hoard, all of this. He was going to trust the Lord to provide whatever the Lord wanted. And he was going to guard the fidelity of God's establishing him and his people.
Yeah.
So he's quite the man. Next, chapter 15.
Yeah. So gets into the what he's most famous for, it seems like to me, as a dad especially. So we'll get into that next week. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. And always remember that real dads lead.